Chapter 12 Part 1, Jonathan and Jome. The entire fight had already played out in his mind, but he had to play his part. Wanyenyekevu knew every move they would make before they made them. Amazed at seeing things before they happened, he learned how to let different scenarios play out in his head, as he was not much for playing games. But Wanyenyekevu always hated violence and was saddened, but he saw what they would do to him and realized it was him or them. But the sight of blood, which he considers the soul's essence, still saddened him as he stood there. He threw up his entire meal. He quickly packs up his belongings and heads toward the El Paso metro. Seeing the images of the men's faces and the blood on his clothing, he dropped to his knees in disgrace and shouted out to Sabaoth. "Sabaoth, please forgive me, for I have shed blood, and I have killed, not one, but 5 more of your creations in one night." It seemed like hours as Wanyenyekevu cried out to Sabaoth, before he finally fell asleep. As he closes his eyes and sees darkness, he sees a small light above his head. The light gets larger and more prominent, then suddenly, he sees his grandmother. "It's a boy," she shouts for joy. His family surrounded him, for it is his birth that he is witnessing. Wanyenyekevu then sees his entire life. It was as if he relived every second until the exact time he fell asleep. The darkness covered him again, and then he heard a great voice. "Before you were in the womb, I called thee." Waking up to that great voice, Wanyenyekevu arose from his sleep and wiped the tears from his eyes. "It is so." The sun rose. Wanyenyekevu smiled, for joy had covered him, but the pain still overshadowed him. 3 hours had passed filled with these mixed emotions as he arrived 1 mile south of the opening into El Paso metro. The first metro he had ever seen in his life, up close at least. There were only 10 metro and hundreds if not thousands of micros that he knew of, and only 5 metros were down south. They were Atlanta, Jackson, New Orleans, Dallas, and Houston. El Paso was no longer considered the South, but its metro was a gigantic bubble about 24 miles high and a perimeter of 52 miles wide. He had heard about metro and micros from others in his village, books in the library, but he had never seen them for himself. He stood there in awe for 5 minutes. The bubble, as it is called back home, stood there like a transparent, crystallized liquid that seemed to fall like a waterfall but was forced to stay in place with a never-ending cycle of clear lava-like fluid. He stood there looking through the bubble afar to see the sky, large buildings, and thousands of skycraft racing throughout the bubble. He was in awe of the floating building that stood amid the atmosphere. Wanyenyekevu stood there and shook his head in amazement. "Sabaoth is able," he said proudly. He walked toward the wall and held up his hand to touch it when he heard a voice. "Who in the hell are you? And motherfucker, what the hell you think you finna do with your hands? In 1.2 seconds you gonna have about 100 of them some bitches fucking up my damn game." There stood a young man 6 foot tall and medium built, weighing about 150 pounds, with one of the filthiest mouths Wanyenyekevu had ever heard and had a stench that would wake the dead. The young man shouted in fear, "Put your hand down, motherfucker, damn." Wanyenyekevu didn't know what to do, hold his nose or kill the man, but he didn't seem dangerous and didn't want to be rude either. He slowly lowered his hands, but the man continued to talk. What are you doing out here? You a long way from home, coming around here looking like a damn pup looking for his mom. Where the fuck you from?" Wanyenyekevu grabbed his cane and looked for any sudden movements. "Why didn't I see this time coming?" he said aloud. "What time is coming? What the fuck are you talking about? It's about 11 o'clock. The young man was confused about what Wanyenyekevu had said and thought that maybe he was slow, so he rephrased his words, using his hands to illustrate what he was saying. "Look, if you touch that wall you gonna alert the A's, and they don't fuck with C's and might just kill AD, understand now B?" Rubbing his eyes and forehead, for he saw this vision in a dream months ago, Wanyenyekevu said, "Deja vu." Adjusting his thoughts, he said, "What language do you speak? It's so hard to follow, and who are the A's and the B's?" The young man was named Jonathan. He scratched his head, grabbed his private area, and tugged on it. "Those white roped some bitches acting like they're God in there." Jonathan pointed at the bubble, then he gestured. "Touch wall." He pointed to the bubble and gesture again, using his fingers in a vertical motion and crossing his neck with anger. "You die motherfucker, do you understand that shit?" He slowly turned around and continued reprimanding him, "Fucking asshole, looking like a fish out of water. Talking about who's the bees these nuts in your mouth motherfucker. Bringing them motherfuckers near me. If you wanna die, take your fucking ass further south, straight to that front door, and say, hey, let me in. They'll let your ass in alright, with your head on that motherfucking trophy wall. Motherfuckers need to stay home sometimes. Damn, yo Jome. Jome. Jonathan shouted in frustration. Jome automatically opened a hidden door that led into the ground, but Jome didn't come out. I'm busy. Jome shouts back to Jonathan, but Jonathan continues. Look at this fool, some simple-minded and dumb ninja turtle-looking motherfucker. Do you believe he was finna touch that damn wall? His ass was standing there looking like a deer in headlights. Jome rises from the structure underground. What? Where the fuck he from? He looked at Wanyenyekevu. Oh yeah, he's one of those Wakatilians or some shit like that. Jome continued. Hey brother, you're lost? Damn, that's a stupid-ass question. I can see that much, but your ass is fucking up. Why is your ass around here? Jome curiously looks around, and your ass ain't even got a horse or nothing else to ride? Why didn't you at least dress up as one of them or us? You know, camouflage yourself? Jome was a little older than the first young man, stood about 6 foot 2 inches tall, and weighed about 175 pounds. Wanyenyekevu looked for signs of aggression but felt that the two men were just trying to get rid of him. Jome just stood there talking. If you were trying to go farther west, you gotta take your ass all the way around this wall, and I would travel a few miles out as well, 'cause the way you're dressed, you're just an open target. Jome said as he looked around again, scratching his head. And that shit is 180 degrees away, about a day and a half or 2 days journey. 'Cause ain't no way in hell you're going through there. Wanyenyekevu understood this second man much better because he spoke much slower and didn't curse as much. Anakatas have a very foul mouth and smell bad. Wanyenyekevu said as he released his grasp from his cane. Anakatas, my name is Jonathan, and this is my brother, Jome. Said Jonathan as he smelled his armpits. Why do you call us that shit, anyway? Do you call Jonathan thought to himself as if he had an epiphany. Hey, I'll tell you what we are, we're your local pharmacist. That's what we are. He grabs some vials and continues, got a toothache? Jonathan held up a green vial with a smile on his face. Got menstrual cramps? He quickly pauses. Oh, my fault, or do you just want to get high as the great blue sky? Holding up a red vial. Jonathan continued as he pulled out a yellowish-looking vial. Now, with this shit here. I call it, hide and seek. We are the people to see for all your medical needs, plus more, if you know what I mean. No, I don't, replied Wanyenyekevu. Jome interrupted, we ain't gonna have shit if he touches that wall, but busted. Jome was the smartest of the two as he walked toward Wanyenyekevu. Why are you here? Jome continued. Your type is rarely seen here unless they are being arrested or executed or both, Wanyenyekevu said proudly. I have to go to Arizona, for I am being sent there by Sabaoth to get married. Jonathan jokingly said. Damn, ain't no bitches where you from? You carrying your ass clear across the country to get some ass? Offended but yet understanding, Wanyenyekevu held his peace as Jonathan continued. Hell, you can have our cousin, Kia's. She's one ugly bitch, but she can clean and cook her ass off. Wanyenyekevu smiled. No thanks, Jonathan smiled, tell that, Sabaoth. Wanyenyekevu quickly interrupted Jonathan with a stern voice. Sabaoth is my creator whom I serve, please hold your peace. Jonathan said. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were so sensitive, shit. You religious people are something else. Seeing Wanyenyekevu's frustration with Jonathan, Jome said, look. It was nice knowing you and all that, but we gotta go. A beam of light shined on his forehead, and something struck Jome in his forehead, as he fell to the ground, dead. A loud cry came from behind Wanyenyekevu, "Kill them all." Jonathan held up his hands and shouted, "Wait!" A large spear pierced through his heart. As Wanyenyekevu turned around, he still had his hand on his cane, ready for battle, but he heard Jonathan. "Anakatas? My name is Jonathan, and this is my brother Jome. We are your local pharmacist," as he grabbed some vials. "Got a toothache?" Jonathan held up a green vial with a smile. "Got menstrual cramps?" He quickly pauses. "Oh, my fault," Wanyenyekevu said quickly. "Listen, I see you as good men, kind of." He smiled. "But our prints are everywhere, and we don't have long, but we must hide or fight." As he continued, Jonathan did not hear a word he had said and pulled out a yellowish-looking vial. "Now, this shit here, I call it hide and seek. Shaking his head at Jonathan, Jome said. "I'm a lover, not a fighter." "Do the laws want you?" Wanyenyekevu replied. "I don't have time to explain, but we got about 6 minutes, and it's not going to be good for any of us." Jome grabbed a vial out of his bag, shook it 3 hard times, threw it onto the ground, and then pointed to Wanyenyekevu. "Go into the door." Not long after, 8 men arrived as the 3 young men watched through a one-way transparent door. "He has to be close," said one man. As another man is heard a little way off saying, "I got 3 sets of prints heading north." Hours later, the smell of wild rabbit roasting and the stitch of musk from the men filled the air. There were rabbits in a metal oven with a bright light, roasting. It's been about 2 to 3 hours now, and those men are long gone and lost by now. Jome said as he held up a small vial as he continued, that there was an old military secret weapon used back in the days. It creates footprints for up to 10 miles. "Neat, huh?" Jome smiled as he tried to impress Wanyenyekevu. "Good thing I got about 3 left. It's about." Looking at the wall, he snapped his fingers, and a transparent image stood against the wall with a map and the time. Then with his finger, he flicked the surface of the light, and the map moved. "They should be around about there." Pointing to the map. "We're here." Wanyenyekevu was sitting on the ground with his eyes closed and his legs crossed as he meditated, listening to the voice. He opened his eyes. Amusement filled him again as he asked Jome, "What is that?" Pointing to the map while shaking his head, he took a deep breath. "Sabaoth is able." The brothers paused and looked at each other. "Now he speaks." Jome jokingly said, "It's a map, man. Are you from the Stone Age?" Jonathan shakes his head. "Y'all ain't got no GPS weather system map, you never saw the walls, you dress like Tarzan meets Ninja or some damn body. Y'all worship God. And those assholes in there think they are God. Damn, this world is coming to an end." Wanyenyekevu ignored Jonathan. Looking at Jome, he asked, "This map, how does it work?" Pointing to a small coin-looking object reflecting the image on the wall. Jome replied, "This is a GPS weather map that shows you time, temperature, weather conditions, and the likes around you. And that's all it's good for. You can get one of these anywhere. The new ones are real-time, though, showing people and objects. There are 3 ways of getting one: trade, barter, or slaughter. It's that simple." Wanyenyekevu said, pointing at the map. "You say we are here? And I need to get here. Can you show me a closer view of Arizona?" Jome said, "Sure." He took 2 hands and gestured his hand to make a larger square, and a larger map appeared, then asked, "Where in Arizona?" He replied, "I believe it's the Sioux Reservation outside of Tucson." Jonathan, looking closely, said, "Here." Studying the map, Wanyenyekevu said, "That will take many moons to reach there." "It is so." Their conversation became more interesting as they ate and got acquainted. Before they knew it, it was 7 in the evening.